Hey, Greg.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
I see Jonathan's on also without video. Yeah, he's just calling in, right?
Yeah, I think he's just going to call in.
I wonder if I can unmute him.
Yeah, if you go to participants and then
let me get this. Okay.
It'll bring up a box there. Now he's unmuted.
Good
morning.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thanks for helping us out here today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Morning, Jonathan. Thank you.
Hey, Greg. Yeah, no problem.
I think everybody else is on mute. It's calling in or zooming in. So.
And you already made me a co-host, I think, right?
How did I? No, I didn't. How do I do that?
You didn't?
No. How do I do that? I have me listed as host. Okay, here. Okay, let me see more. Oh, make code. Okay, I got it. All right. Change host. Make. Okay, I'm your host. You're now the host.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any co-host.
Huh.
But that allows you to do the screen though, and you need to do that more than me.
Yeah.
I can still be unmuted.
Yep.
Okay.
I think you've got it muting people as they come in then?
Yes, everybody should be muted.
Okay.
But they probably can hear us. So anybody that is in, realize that if you do want to talk, there's a chat button at the bottom. And if you're on a phone, you can chat. But if you're on a Zoom phone, on a phone for Zoom, you can hit the screen and there's a chat feature at the bottom. And then that's how we're going to ask questions. The format we're going to use here is Greg's going to do a presentation first. I believe it's Jonathan going to talk then, and then we'll take questions and answer some questions.
Yep.
Admitted. We're starting to load up with people. Yeah, it's fill up.
Tom, did you have a good response for this?
Yes, we had Stephen told me well over 50 yesterday, and then he sent out reminders this morning, which I think is going to spike it even more. So, yeah, we did have a very good response to it. Yeah, so anything we've done, we've gotten good responses to. We sent out a email Stephen sent out earlier week for any business news. Anybody wanted any, things listed about their businesses, whether it's restaurants or anybody else, that's what they're doing at their businesses. And he got over 80 responses on that. So,
wow,
really good. Yeah, man, they're pouring in right now. I can't even keep up with it.
I think all through all this, I think it's going to permanently at least reevaluate how we all conduct business in some sense. And I mean, these Zoom calls, you might get a higher turnout if you do some of your presentations as a Zoom, just because not everyone can go to a physical location, but they may be able to dial in virtually. So I think I think there is going to be definitely some good that comes out of all this.
I totally agree. I think we've seen it. We had our business development committee meeting last Friday morning, and we usually get, there's probably 25, 30 people on the committee, but we usually get about maybe 15 to show up. Well, we had 24 on the call. Okay, let me see. I got a chat.
Wow.
Okay, so Susan Dyson is having trouble getting in. She's going to try another commuter. That's good call. So that was my first check. We've got 14 participants right now, and it's, what time is it? I think we're still a little early. 9:50.
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes.
If they're like me, I always tile in right at 10 o'clock. I don't know why I do that. I think I'm afraid that I'm going to get in too early or something. So, so we'll probably get a big burst right at 10 o'clock. So, good. So we'll start off with Greg, and,
Yep.
and then we'll turn it over to Jonathan. And I'll monitor the chats and try to feed the questions. Can you guys see? Can you? Oh, I know Jonathan can't, but can you, Greg? Can you see the?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay. All right. So, but I'll try to monitor them because you'll be talking and everything. So.
Okay.
Right. Now, how come I've got to change my gallery view? I guess here. Ah, there we go. There's a lot of people, a lot of names. I see Kelly B up there. I see Lauren. Steven's not sitting at, I see Steven's kitchen or something like that.
He was there.
Most everybody else I've just got, they must not have video because I see Leanne and H. Bailey and Kevin K from Adventure Calls and Jonathan. I got a phone number here. Kelly R.
Well, I'm here, Tom. I just don't know how to get the camera to show my face.
Who's that, Kevin?
Yeah.
Now we're getting some sort of video now.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm looking at my monitor and it's showing I don't know what.
Is that Letchworth Gorge or something like that, Kevin?
It looks like my thumb, but I can tell you it's not.
I was gonna say, I think it's your thumb.
Yeah. So
I'll go back to that.
Kevin, how do I turn this up?
how do we get to volume? Right?
Not going up.
Sure. Yeah, we're still sitting at 14 here. It's funny, I had let a bunch of people in, but I haven't got any more requests since then.
Yeah, I let a few people in too, and here comes another one. Are you still getting the requests, Tom?
No, it's I don't see anybody in the waiting room at all.
Okay, so maybe because you transferred it to me, but I'm getting them now.
Oh, you're getting waiting rooms? Yeah,
Yep.
You're the host. Okay.
Yep.
It's your job then.
Just add a couple more. We got a couple minutes and then we'll get going.
That looks like Frank the Brush there. Hi, Frank.
Kevin, where are these?
What are All right. People are not muted.
I figured out my camera lens was still covered from when I bought the laptop.
Ah,
That happened to me too. I started doing these and I said, my camera doesn't work. And then there's a little switch on there that moves it over on my laptop, and now I've got it going. So
Yeah, mine had a sticker on it.
Okay.
there you go. Got a bunch of people hopping in here now.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I figured we would right around 10. What time is it? 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, everybody's gonna hop in. We'll want to wait till 10:05 or so, or what do you think?
Yeah, 10:02 maybe. You know, just give it a couple minutes and.
All right, sounds good. Are you muting everybody too, Greg, except for John and I? I don't.
Yep.
No, I guess I can see them. Yeah. Some of them aren't muted though.
Hold on, Tom. I'm sorry. I muted you. Unmute. And I got to unmute Jonathan as well.
Okay.
A few more folks coming in here.
Yeah, I figured they'd be pouring in. Yeah. So. Coach Swaz.
If everybody can just make sure they're muted so we don't get any feedback when it starts, we appreciate it.
Good morning, Stephen.
Hey, Greg.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I thought Greg could.
Both my kids are still asleep, so.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
I commandeer my daughter's room for my office for these Zoom calls, so.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Are you able to? Okay. Well, what do you think, Greg? You want to get started?
Good morning,
Yep.
all. Hi. Good morning, Greg.
Morning.
Are you, okay, all right. We're gonna, okay. Morning, everybody. I think we're gonna start to this thing, this Zoom meeting here. Bear with us. This is all new for most of us, and we've never done one quite this big before. I want to thank Greg Lindberg from the SBA for helping to set us up. And we also have Jonathan Tretter from Freed Maxic to give us the CPA point of view on everything with the disaster loans. So I know that Greg and Jonathan did one together yesterday with Wyoming County, right? And it went really well.
Yep.
We thought about both points of view on this. It would help out a lot. So we're going to have, Greg's going to mute everybody, and if you could stay muted, the feedback is a lot better if you're muted, unless we have a question. There is a chat feature at the bottom. If you're on a PC, that if you have a question, type it in. We're going to start off. Greg's got a presentation he wants to do. Jonathan's going to talk, and you can then ask questions. But we prefer to ask the questions by the chat box because it's just easier to handle that way. So I'm going to try to monitor the chat box and feed the questions to Greg and Jonathan. But I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan now and let him go from here.
I'm going to start first, Tom, and then Jonathan will go, and then we're going to keep this open for questions. So put them in the chat box, as Tom said, and we'll get to them at the end of our presentations, because a lot of what we're going to talk about will probably be covered. We should have probably, at least 20 to 30 minutes for questions at the end of this. So we've built in some time for that. So just checking to see if nobody else in the waiting room. So I think we're good. So as Tom said, my name is Greg Lindberg from the U.S. Small Business Administration. Thanks for joining us today. We're in the midst of an unprecedented time here for our economy and our country. So we're just trying to get the best information we can to people. Please understand that there's still a lot of uncertainty around these programs. The PPP program, which we'll talk about first and probably spend the most time on, is a $350 billion program, a rescue package for small businesses that was turned around in a week. So there are still a lot of unknowns, and we're all doing our best to try to get the best information as possible. We're expecting even more rules to come next week, but to give you some scope of that, the SBA does $30 billion a year in guaranteed loans across the country generally. We've already had over $100 million in participation in this program by Wednesday. So it's fast and furious. Lenders are overwhelmed. It's a lot of work. Everybody coming at once. So if I could just stress two words are, patience and persistence through this process. We know everybody's, in a tough spot here. The money is there, get in line with your lender and get ready to work through it. But it's going to take some patience and persistence to move this forward. So with that, I'm going to get started talking generally about the PPP. Hold on. Okay. The Paycheck Protection Program. It's a loan program that provides forgiveness for retaining employees by temporarily expanding the traditional SBA 7A loan program. So Paycheck Protection Program. First of all, applications were able to begin being submitted for this program last Friday. And I know there was a lot of talk about lenders weren't accepting them on Friday. Well, that was because the rules didn't drop till Thursday night at about 6 o'clock. So it was a little difficult to be able to, begin accepting these applications on Friday when they really didn't know what all the rules were. So a lot of banks started accepting them on Monday just to, get their online systems running or whatever, however they wanted to take these applications. So you could begin applying for this program last Friday as a small business or sole proprietorship. Starting today, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can also apply for these loans to cover their payroll and other expenses as well. So those are the two, kickstarting dates. Here we go. Applications ready to be accepted. Who can apply for the PPP program? All businesses, including nonprofits, veteran organizations, tribal businesses, sole proprietorships, self-employed individuals, and independent contractors with 500 or fewer employees. Nonprofits, they're looking at 501c3s, are what are specifically mentioned in the rules. Some businesses and industries, that are specialized in certain manufacturing industries and some others can have more than 500 employees if they meet applicable SBA size standards. If you're interested in that, there's a link there. I'm going to send this presentation to Tom so he could send it to everyone. That way you have that information if that fits a business that you're looking to talk to. PPP affiliation exceptions for this program. SBA's affiliation standards are waived for small businesses. So, sometimes one hotel group owns multiple hotels and then that can put them over the size standards. SBA is waiving that. Again, Paycheck Protection Program means they're trying to keep people on the payroll, trying to keep people working. And we're helping to pay wages for folks, and that's the key to this program. Franchises and SBA's franchise directory, and again, some links in this presentation that you can take a look at to help you out. And businesses that receive financial assistance from our small business investment companies, licensed by the SBA, which is a form of venture capital that the SBA participates in. PPP, where to apply? So apply through any existing SBA lender. There are other federally insured depository institutions coming online that weren't SBA lenders before. They're adding thousands every day. Any federally insured credit union that has chosen to accept these loans, and Farm Credit System that is participating. So really your first stop with this though is the bank that you have your commercial relationship with. Banks are looking at their existing customers in many cases because it's easier to get this moving with them. They have some more of the information. So you want to, talk to your commercial lender first at whatever you bank, at wherever you bank. So we're bringing other lenders online, opening this up to credit unions and other banks that weren't participating SBA lenders before in order to help get money on the street faster. And if you are having a problem finding a lender, there's a search tool SBA has put together that you can click on there in this email, in this PowerPoint, and find a lender in your area by putting in your zip code that could help you out. All right. Hold on, it's frozen. Okay, here we go. So PPP, how to apply? You want to talk to your commercial lender. Many of the local lenders have put this application online, and they're accepting thousands and thousands of them at this point. So again, it's moving fast. All of these applications have to be in process by June 30th in order to take advantage of this program. But, as with any congressionally funded, government-funded program, when the money runs out, the money runs out. So currently the authorization is $349 billion. Congress is, as reported in the news, is looking at extending that authorization. But until that comes to fruition, you just kind of want to pay attention and make sure that does happen. But that's where suggesting that people get moving, get this application in and get the process started so that you can begin to take advantage of this program. All right, so the Paycheck Protection Program, the loan amount, how do they figure that out? It's the lesser of $10 million or an amount you will calculate using a payroll-based formula specified in the Act. That formula is your average monthly payroll cost multiplied by 2.5 times. So they're going to look at the last 12 months, or you can use a calendar year of 2019 in some situations too, and say, okay, what was the average monthly payroll cost? So let's say your average monthly payroll cost was $20,000. They're going to multiply that by 2.5. We get $50,000. And $50,000 would be your loan amount under the PPP program, okay? There are a lot of, there's some exceptions and things that also, the lender is going to have to deal with for you. So, all these kind of intricate questions you're gonna work with your lender on some of those as they get more guidance and get moving here. All right, the PPP loan proceeds. You should use the proceeds from these loans on your payroll costs, including benefits. So it's the entire employee compensation package, health insurance that you may pay for as a business owner for your employees, your 401k contributions, the salary, all those payroll costs rolled together, okay? Interest on mortgage obligations that were in place before February 15th. Note that is the interest on the mortgage, not the actual mortgage payment. You may use it for rent proceeds or to pay your rent for leases that were in force before February 15th of 2020. and for utilities for which service began before February 15th, 2020. So it's important that you note these costs are what can be charged down to provide forgiveness. So if you spend the money on things that are not these, they will not forgive those portions. Hold on. The terms on the PPP, it's a 1% fixed rate with a 2-year term, a 6-month deferment, no prepayment penalty to pay it off early, and no collateral required. So as most of you know, when you're looking for any sort of bank financing, one of the first questions that comes up after, credit is your what collateral, what kind of personal guarantee do you have? There is no personal guarantee requirement for this PPP loan. And again, that's to help get capital in people's hands faster. The other portion of that is, if you're using the funds to pay payroll like you're supposed to, most of this will be forgiven. So you'll be able to write down a significant amount of cost on the PPP program. As with anything, if you use the proceeds for fraudulent purposes or other things that, you weren't supposed to, the U.S. government will pursue criminal charges against you. All right, on the loan forgiveness, you will owe money when your loan is due if you use the loan amount for anything other than payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities payments over the 8 weeks after you get the loan, okay? So it's an 8-week period from the time you get the loan, and not more than 25% of the forgiven amount may be for non-payroll costs. So remember, Paycheck Protection Program, want to keep people on the payroll, want to keep paying wages to employees. That's the whole point of this, to give you basically 2 months of paying folks salaries and benefits. So that's the win here, and that's why they're saying 75% of your forgiveness is going to be tied to those payroll costs, and 25% can be non-payroll. You also owe money if you do not maintain your staff and payroll as outlined. So the PPP is one program that SBA has going on. There's also the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance. So the loan advance is something when you filled out the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, there was a box that you could check for the loan advance, which was supposed to help get money in people's hands sooner. So it looks like if you've done that, the loan advance, they're going to look at $1,000 per head at the business, and that's what you're going to be able to get in that $10,000 loan advance. So if you have 5 people, it'd be a $5,000 advance. Then they will be following up with you on the rest of the loan itself from the disaster loan program. If you have questions, if you've already applied for this loan, the phone number is here, the email is there. And if you haven't applied for them, there's a link here in the presentation that you can go to do it. So this is another option for businesses. Really, if you're paying payroll and, the PPP is the thing you want to look at first, because that's going to provide the most amount of forgiveness. And if you do get this EIDL loan advance, any of that credit for employees, your PPP will be reduced by the amount of that EIDL loan advance. So if you got $5,000 from the EIDL loan advance for 5 employees, your PPP forgiveness would be reduced by $5,000 as well. All right, SBA Express Bridge Loans are another product that's been rolled out through our current SBA Express lender network. So, when you think about SBA Express lenders, that's most of our, Bank of Castile, 5-Star Bank, M&T, Key Bank. They're all SBA Express lenders. The most of the larger banks that we would think about. So, this is a short-term loan that allows folks to access up to $25,000 quickly. You can use proceeds from a disaster loan you may receive to help pay this down. But this is just another option, this express bridge loan, meant to be less paperwork and get money in folks' hands quicker. So another option for you there. And then, okay, yeah, up to 25,000. And then this is the last piece that is kind of being overlooked a little, and doesn't get as much attention, but the SBA Debt Relief piece. So SBA Debt Relief Program provides a reprieve to small businesses as they overcome the challenges created by this health crisis. Under this program, the SBA will pay the principal and interest of current 7A loans for a period of 6 months. So anybody that currently has a 7A loan with the U.S. Small Business, a guaranteed loan from the U.S. Small Business Administration, will have their payments and interest, principal and interest paid for 6 months, which is significant to help, kind of get through this time. So the SBA will also pay the principal and interest of new 7A loans that are issued prior to September 27th, 2020. So something that's being a little bit overlooked and doesn't get the, media attention in that the PPP program would. But this is significant for borrowers that currently have loans with the SBA to help kind of, keep them afloat for a little while. So, if you have a current 7A loan, you want to talk to your lender about how that's going to work, because this is very helpful for folks. So with that, I'm going to get Jonathan moving here, my information, and I'll have Tom send this around. That is an overview of, the current programs that you should be taking a look at that can help your business. Hold on one second. I'm trying to get the Zoom to work here. All right. Jonathan, are you there?
Yep, I'm here, and appreciate the information, Greg. I think it's, as we load this up, I just think it's important that everyone understands that there's been a lot of focus put on the Paycheck Protection Program, and rightfully so, because it does provide the most forgiveness. But there's a lot of incentives and loan programs out there. It's not a one size fits all. Every business is different, and it really depends on the needs of the business, the employee cost of the business. So whether it's the EIDL loan, the PPP, even the employee retention credit, which is a payroll tax credit that can be refundable, or even, Families First Coronavirus Act had some paid family sick leave in there. There's a lot out there for businesses to take advantage of, and there is some overlap. So it's just good you kind of have a full perspective of all the programs. And just to give a little bit background on the Paycheck Protection Program, I know Greg touched on it. I think patience and persistence, as he said, are those are two very important words. It was signed into law, I think, March 27th, and then less than a week later, essentially they were writing loans. So it developed very fast. And as Greg has alluded to, in 2019, the SBA wrote $30 billion of loans, and just on April 3rd, the first day applications were being accepted, I read that banks processed $30 billion of loans just in one day. So, they did a year's worth of work in one day. So there is patience and persistence to this program. And just a little more, background on this. It is the largest small business support program that the country has ever seen. And, the intention is really to give small businesses a springboard when the economy opens up, when we have the green light to start operating as business as usual. So, there might be some overlap where if you do apply for the PPP, but you can't go full operations. It is intended to pay your employees at a full head count, at a full wage. So really, when the economy does open up, you're ready to go, and you don't have to bring everyone back at that point. And if you also just look at the total umbrella that the Paycheck Protection Program applies to for how they define small business, it covers 80 to 85 million American workers, which are impacted by this program or can be impacted by it. That's how many, people essentially work for small businesses in the U.S. So it is a very big reaching program that impacts, tens of millions of workers. So it is a very good program. So when you apply for the PPP, you do have to make some certifications on the application. The first one being that you do have to certify that their current economic uncertainty makes the loan necessary to support your ongoing operations. So just know that. Probably the most important certification to just have an understanding of is, that you have to certify that the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll or pay other eligible expenses. This is extremely important because you really should not be applying for the PPP if you do not plan on spending the money for qualified uses, predominantly for payroll costs. If you do not have high payroll costs, the EIDL loan may be something that's worth looking into. So just know, that this is really intended to pay wages for employees. You also have to certify that you have not and will not receive another loan under the PPP program, and you do not have an application for a loan under Section 7A for the same purpose, and you have not received another Section 7A loan for the same purpose between February 15th and December 31, 2020. The PPP program falls under the Section 7A loan program. So, there is overlap with 7A and 7B. I guess the key thing is that you cannot use the money from the different programs for the same use. So you do have to certify that you're using it for different purposes that are qualified. You also have to, certify to your lender that, you verify the number of FTE employees on payroll, your amounts of payroll costs and covered expenses for the 8 weeks after receiving the loan. So you will have to certify that. And, you have to also certify that all the information provided in your application is true and accurate. Just understand that the SBA has tried to make this as easy and as streamlined as possible for the lending institutions. So they're not really requiring, a lot of certification. They do have to do some level of certification, but the onus is really going to be on the borrower, on the business to, if push comes to shove, to prove how you use the funds, that your payroll costs were legitimate. So, that's where the certifications are really important. So, in terms of the maximum amount of the loan, I know there is some overlap with Craig's presentation, but it is, 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost for looking prior 1 year to the date of the loan. You can also, add to that any outstanding disaster loan under 7B2 that was made after January 31, 2020 that you can refinance into this, and then, or it's capped out at $10 million. There are also special rules for businesses that were not in business from February 15th, 2019 through June 30th, 2019. And there are special rules for seasonal employers. For seasonal employers, you really have the option, because looking at your wages on a 12-month basis may not really maximize your payroll cost needs over the next 8 weeks if you are seasonal. Like, say, for example, you're a golf course, which, obviously got shut down yesterday, or even maybe for some farming institutions. So, there are special rules where you can you kind of have an election to look at your payroll costs from March 1st through June 30th. Or a 12-week period beginning February 15th, 2019. So know that if you are a seasonal employer, there are special rules out there for you. Defining payroll costs are probably the most important thing to understand about this, and quite honestly has been the most ambiguous. And I think the SBA issued some frequently asked questions this week, and the guidance they issued the night of April 2nd was important and what a lot of us were waiting for. But just to define payroll costs in a little more depth, it's wages, commissions, and salaries not to exceed an annual rate of $100,000 for any one employee. You can also include cash tips or equivalents. So if you do have tipped employees, you can include those tips, and then essentially you'd have to pay them out as wages, knowing that they may not be making tips over that time. You can include vacation, parental, family, and medical leave. severance, separation pay, and in, retirement benefits, whether it's simple plan contributions by the employer, 401k contributions by the employer, that also is included in payroll costs. Group healthcare benefits and state or local taxes are also included. What's not included or counted is compensation above $100,000 for any one employee on an annualized basis. Under the frequently asked questions, they did clarify this because there was some question. This is strictly cash compensation, so you do not have to look at employee benefits or retirement benefits and cap those out as well. It's strictly cash compensation that is capped out at $100,000 on an annual basis for any one employee. They also clarified the use of payroll taxes. So payroll taxes paid by the employer are not an eligible payroll cost. So those cannot be included, even though the employer will be essentially paying that money out to the government. The government didn't want to essentially fund that. But you also are not penalized. There was some talk whether federal FICA withholding from an employee's pay or even federal income tax withholding had to be netted against compensation to come up with your payroll costs. They clarified that, and it's essentially your gross payroll costs, not net of any federal withholding. So that that was important for some clarity. Any employee whose principal place of residence is outside the U.S. cannot be counted in payroll costs. They also clarified that payments to independent contractors should not be included because essentially independent contractors can apply on their own, so they don't want those costs to be double counted. And qualified sick leave and family emergency leave wages, cannot be counted if they're under the other programs that allow those to be forgiven. And just a little more just detail. When the frequently asked questions were issued on April 6th, that was 3 or 4 days after the applications opened up. So if you applied under the previous rules or under the proposed rules without clarity and your application was processed, you do not have to redo it. But if you did apply after that date, you can reapply with some of the new clear rules to maybe increase your loan amount. So that's just some additional detail on that. Documentation needed for your PPP calculation. Each bank is, from what we're seeing, is different in terms of what information they're requiring as part of their application. Some banks are taking paper applications. Some have set up a portal, so everything is done through their website, which the SBA has allowed. So it's really dependent upon your lender. But just to give everyone, a general idea of some general information that we're recommending to start with is your quarterly, payroll returns, 940, 941, 944s. That's to be provided to the lending institution. Also, it's important that you certify that you did have payroll and wages on February 15th, 2020, that you were in business. So we're asking that, you provide your 12-month look back of your payroll just to confirm that you were paying employees on February 15th, 2020. You also have to provide documentation for your health insurance premiums that you were paying for employees. So proof of payment, whether that's a statement from the health insurance provider or other proof is going to be required, as well as some sort of proof for your retirement plan funding for the retirement benefits that you're including in payroll costs. So, many payroll providers have some generated reports in their software that help the business calculate these without really doing it on a manual sort of calculation or Excel workbook. So, I would say if you haven't done this calculation yet and you do use a third-party provider for payroll, reach out to them because it may very well be a click of the button for them to kind of get you at least a lot of the information that you need for the calculation. So moving on to use of loan funds, I know Greg touched on this. Payroll costs, you can use those for, and for maximum loan forgiveness, payroll costs should be used for at least 75% of the total loan money that was received. If it's under that amount, then you will start limiting how much can be forgiven. And just because you do use 100% on loan or on payroll costs does not mean, you know, it's 100% forgivable. We'll get to that later on. You can also use it on, you know, interest on mortgage obligations, rent, and utilities that were in force or in service before February 15th, 2020. They just want to make sure that, you know, you didn't come up with a rent agreement or, you know, start adding to your utility costs after that date just to kind of take advantage of the program. And, you know, you can also use it on interest on other debts incurred before February 15th, 2020, but just understand that if it's not a mortgage, if you use it for interest on another debt obligation, it is not forgivable. So it's just important to understand that. And then in terms of the loan, you know, Greg touched on that, 2 years, 1% interest rate, and it's deferred for 6 months upon receiving the loan. So loan forgiveness, a borrower is eligible for loan forgiveness if the loan funds were used for the following purposes. You know, as we discussed, payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rents, and utilities. So, you know, like we said, 75% has to be for payroll costs. The bottom section here is where it's really important. You know, the forgiveness amount will be reduced if you have cut employee headcount during that 8-week covered period, or if you substantially reduced your employee compensation during that period, as well as if you did receive a $10,000 EIDL emergency grant advance, then your forgiveness will be reduced by $10,000 on the PPP forgiveness piece. So on the next slide, we'll get into a little more detail on the actual mechanics of the calculation for loan forgiveness, because it is really based on not only how much, you know, wages paid to employees, but also how many employees or full-time equivalents you have. And it, you know, they look at your 8-week cover period, and that starts when the loan originates. So they're going to look at your 8-week FTE average for that 8-week period. And also just a caveat, we're still not entirely sure, and we're looking for guidance on the definition of full-time equivalent, or how exactly you're going to be required to count that employee headcount. In other SBA programs, you know, they've used a 30-hour requirement for FTE, but we're not certain that that's going to be the case here. So I think there still is information to come out that, and even in the interim final guidance that the SBA issued, they did say they're going to be issuing more guidance on the forgiveness piece. So more to come on that. But essentially, you have the option to compare your employee headcount during the 8-week cover period to a period of February 15th, 2019 through June 30th, 2019 on an average basis, or January 1st, 2020 through February 29th, 2020. So it's really your choice, your election to make as to what period you're going to compare your employee headcount versus. And, you know, another question that we've received a lot, and I'm sure the SBA has too, is, you know, by this point, a lot of businesses have already reduced their workforce or their employee headcount. So are they going to be penalized for that? And you do have the ability to restore your workforce to a normal level to be eligible for maximum loan forgiveness. Essentially, you have 30 days after the passage of the CARES Act, which would probably put you around April 26th, 27th, to get your employee headcount back to full to maximize loan forgiveness. So it's, you know, if you've already done that, you know, it's not too late to if you know you're going to get the loan, to start putting the pieces in place to bring your workforce back, or at least get them on payroll. Application for loan forgiveness, you know, it has to be made within 60 days after the 8-week period. So just know that, you know, you want to make sure you're ready to apply for forgiveness. You apply for forgiveness to the lender, and then essentially they work through the SBA to calculate the loan forgiveness. You do have to, you know, verify and apply documentation for the use of the funds. This can be done with payroll tax filings or other wage filings. Documentation, you know, not limited to canceled checks, verifying payments on mortgages, rent, and utilities. You know, what we've seen is some banks are recommending possibly setting up a separate checking account to just kind of house the funds that you receive in this loan, and then use that account to disperse or transfer the money as it's used for the eligible costs. we realize that, you know, if you have your operating account that payrolls run out of, it's not feasible to change the ACH electronic payment out of this new account. But it's not a bad idea if you have the capability to, you know, at least transfer the money on a weekly basis to cover payroll costs, and then transfer the money to pay rent or utilities. At least it gives you a fairly good idea of how you're spending the money and kind of how you're utilizing the money over that 8-week period. So that's just something we've seen that, you know, isn't necessarily a bad idea to consider. There are still some unanswered questions about this program. And, you know, I think there's still to be more guidance to be issued, but a couple of the biggest questions that we're seeing that we still think are unanswered. You know, one of them, and, you know, the applications open up today for, you know, self-employed individuals or independent contractors. You know, what support is going to be needed? Is it providing my Schedule C? Is it providing my 1099 that at least confirms the amount of income I'm taking in? And I think banks are still, you know, every bank's a little different on that. You know, another thing we're not sure about is if you are an independent contractor and you get a PPP loan, how do you prove that you're paying yourself? You know, how do you prove that you're using the money? You know, if essentially you're just using it to live and pay yourself. So there's still some unanswered questions on that, as well as eligibility for partners in a partnership. A lot of questions we've seen for partners that receive guaranteed payments. Are those included in payroll costs? It's our position that they are not included in payroll costs because a partner is not an employee. We're not sure if they were intentionally or unintentionally left out, but, you know, partners are something that we're getting a lot of questions about. Even if you don't receive a guaranteed payment, but you do, all of the income from the partnership is essentially self-employment income for the partner. Does the partner have the ability to file by themselves as a self-employed individual and get compensated for their earnings that essentially they're missing out on? Again, kind of unanswered questions at this point, hoping that it can be addressed sooner rather than later. So that kind of does it for kind of what I had prepared. I know there's some overlap with Greg, but hopefully that provided some additional detail for everyone. I think we're ready to open it up for questions.
Yep, and if start with questions in the chat box that are here, and if you have questions, if you don't mind typing them in there. So the first one, thank you, Jonathan, by the way, that was very good. Appreciate the detail there. It's important to, you know what they're looking for and help people get that information together before they even start to go to the bank. That way they're more prepared. So first question here is, Tom, did you want to unmute yourself or?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, you're there? Good. So first question here is from Kevin K. So on the EIDL advance, and as we were sitting here, I just got some information on that, but so it looks like our headquarters confirmed yesterday the economic injury disaster loan advance. First of all, is going to be calculated on a per employee base method. So allocating $1,000 per employee up to a total of $10,000. So that is, you know, a little bit confusing because there was some information out there that it was going to be a full $10,000 grant. That's not the case. It's going to be $1,000 per employee. If you apply for both and you get the economic injury disaster loan advance first, they will reduce, again, whatever that amount is from your PPP forgiveness. But, you know, that's just so folks can't get both. And supposedly the other question there is the advance funds are supposed to be going to people's accounts this week. And, you know, hopefully you should be getting an email about that if you've applied for the EIDL disaster loan already. So, yep. That would be, Kevin, I hope that answers what you're looking at on there. The EIDL disaster loan is distributed right from SBA, from the U.S. Treasury. So you would have to deal with the customer service folks at the SBA Disaster Assistance Center on any questions from that. Bank of Castile could not help you on that. The PPP, it is going to be working directly with your lender. So you mentioned Bank of Castile, that would be the place that you're going to get the information for, and who you will stay in touch with. Again, sheer volume, just makes it with the PPP that we are, the banks have a lot of folks going on. And honestly, if you're waiting right now on the PPP and you're closed, well, you can maybe wait a little bit and it's not going to be as bad, right? Because you'll be closer to ramping up and opening up as hopefully we begin to open up towards the end of the month or mid-May, whenever that may be. So, Kevin, I hope that answers everything for you. If you have anything else.
Can I kind of follow up on that, Greg, a little bit?
Sure.
I think so. With the EIDL and the $10,000, you just went in there and checked that box. So there's really no way to track it, but they've kind of told us it's been going to be about a week. Is that really is no way you can go in and double check?
Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion on that based on the messaging. The first thing to note was, everybody, it was talked about as being 3 days. Unfortunately, that meant 3 days from the time the loan application was accepted and you talked to a loan officer, at the time. So it really meant a couple weeks as far as processing. And then what was the follow-up on that? I'm sorry, Tom.
The follow-up on it is, so say you went in and just applied for the $10,000
Yep.
in the first round. Can you go back once you realize and apply for another loan through that for actual expenses and everything?
Well, when you applied, did the application for the advanced 10,000, you were really doing the full application at the time. So the advanced 10,000 was worked into the full disaster loan application. So it'll be the advanced 10,000 first, and then the disaster loan piece after that. So someone from there will reach out.
Yeah, but I don't think that ever really asked us to ask for an amount. When we filled it out, it just went through it and how the amount of a loan that you wanted. I just went through it and didn't just check the box for the $10,000 at the bottom. So how would they
Correct.
know? How would they know if they want to borrow?
The application itself was you requesting to borrow, and a loan officer will follow up with you from the SBA Disaster Center. So it was a 2-for-1 when you applied for it. You were applying for both at the same time. They don't request a loan amount because they just look at your gross revenue and cost of goods sold, and they'll ask you for more information as far as dollars and that when they follow up with you. Okay. So the initial application was just to get people through the process quickly because of the sheer volume.
Okay. And can you see the messages in the chat, Greg?
Yep.
Are you going to pull them off there yourself, or?
Yeah, I can do that. So from Adam, can I use money to pay insurances, general liability, and workman's comp? And what if my company is in S corp? So my understanding is that you can't use it to pay insurances. Maybe Jonathan has a little bit more detail on that. Jonathan? Maybe.
Yep, that's my understanding as well, is that you can't use the money for insurance.
Yeah,
I know workers' comp was kind of the question mark, and they haven't specifically addressed workers' comp in terms of allowing it. So, at this point, I would err on the side of caution that it's not included, and it would not be forgivable if you did use it to pay that.
Yep. And if your company is incorporated as an S corp, maybe Adam, you could add a little bit more to. Because I'm an Inc. I take a salary, and can I pay myself? I'm also the president.
So yeah, as an owner of a corporation, you are viewed as an employee, whether it's an S corp or a C corp. So, you're considered an employee and you can pay yourself a salary. Just know that it is obviously capped at $100,000. And I think that's also important just for people to understand is, I know loan forgiveness there's still to be some information out there. But I think that the same rules are going to apply with, they're going to look at payments to each employee over that 8-week period, and then, annualize that over a 52-week period. So I think if you pay an employee an excess amount, and then on an annual basis, it ends up being over $100,000, then I think that would disqualify you for loan forgiveness on that excess over that $100,000 on an annualized basis. So just be aware of that.
Okay, next one. Can the PPP money be refinanced into the longer-term EIDL loan? My understanding of that is no. But the PPP money, you also probably shouldn't know very much at the end of it, and that's really the point of it, is the forgiveness. That's why the term is shorter to 2 years. Okay. Can we apply for the Express Bridge money if we've already applied for the PPP and EIDL? Yes, nothing precludes you from applying for any of these products. The only deal is if you get forgiveness on the EIDL, that will be reduced by that will reduce the amount of your PPP forgiveness. So that's just something to be aware of. You can apply to both PPP and EIDL, no problem. All right, Steve, previous EIDL loan advance, $10,000, didn't have an employee criteria of $1,000 employees. Did something change? Why are earlier applicants not subject to the number of employees limitation? That is the way it's written by SBA. It's meant for, to pay payroll, and I don't know. Yes, it was something changed in the messaging that was done. So that is where we're at. It is $1,000 per employee, and it doesn't matter when you applied. That's just going to be the way it is, from what we're told. So we just found that out very recently. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yep, no problem.
Just getting beat up on the front lines out here, with companies right now on that one.
Yeah, we all are. I hear you. It's a significant change because to us and everyone else, it was promoted as a $10,000 grant basically. So
I'm with you totally, Greg. Part of the problem I'm having is one of our banks in this community has stopped taking applications, and there's these companies at the goal line in the vortex. So then I say, go apply for the 10K advance. That'll help a little bit. And then they come and get hit with the $1,000 last night. And I'm like, boy, this business is getting smacked around right now.
Yeah, no, I know. It's tough. And some of the lenders have taken a little pause, but they're also should be opening back up from what I'm understanding. Just they're getting crushed on the volume. So, It's a tough situation right now. So let's see. If you're a sole proprietorship of a LLC, okay, you're the sole owner of a LLC business and have a separate business account for expenses and deposits in which you take cash draws off of, would the SBA consider this to be an appropriate application under this loan to pay related business expenses, utilities, it's rent, mortgage interest, and that's a key. So Jonathan, what do you think on that one? LLC, business, and sole owner of the LLC, and separate business account for expenses and deposits in which you take cash draws off of. Would the SBA consider this to be an appropriate application under this loan to pay related business expenses? So
I think that would at least substantiate the fact that you have a separate LLC account. I think at least helps your case. And that's still one thing we've wrestled with internally is how do you substantiate that? I think taking cash draws is probably at least one way to show that you're paying yourself. And then, you know, any business expenses that would be eligible for forgiveness, whether it's rent or utilities, come directly out of your business LLC account, I think also would be recommended. I hope that at least addresses the question. I'm not sure. I don't see it on the chat, so I don't have all the details in front of me, but.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, sorry. That's basically it. And it comes down to this owner's draw thing, which gets, you know, a little tricky on some of these. So we're really looking at a lot of W-2 wages here is what they want. SBA guidance on rehiring changed yesterday and requires PPP loan to be dispersed within 10 days of loan approval, and you must be rehired by the max forgiveness given 8-week period starts then. So non-essential businesses do not lose out, but what they do have to do is start paying payroll again. So they don't have to have their employees working, but they have to pay them to get the forgiveness. It's a timing situation. Some states are going to be down longer than others. In New York, we might be down longer than other states. And that's why I kind of tell people to watch the money and see when, you know, it starts to be running out. You might want to get that application in sooner than later. But it is a little bit of a waiting game and a timing game here with reopening. Make sense, Steve? Anything else on that? Or?
No, Greg, thanks very much. You know, we're just out here in the trenches as economic development organization. So we just appreciate your time and giving us guidance so we can give the appropriate guidance too. It's just a really tough timing one for some of these non-essential businesses that are like, how can I get qualified for the forgiveness one? I'm not sure I can even get my people back off unemployment because the pandemic assistance has richened up unemployment so much that they're dealing with those dilemmas right now.
Yeah, I know it's a toughie, and the intent of the payroll protection was to not even put on people on unemployment and really, you know, continue to pay their health insurance and benefits so that, you know, you didn't have to go there. And I know it works better to go there for some people just because they'll be down so long. It doesn't make sense to pay folks. So it's a catch-22, you know?
Yeah, in that case, unemployment insurance right now and the richness of that program contradicts a little bit with the intent of the PPP. So you just got to work your way through it.
Correct. Yeah, that's something that we hear from a lot of employers right now. I know that you can, from what I've been told, you can check a box and say that the people were offered their job back, and then I don't know if they're, you know, how New York State works the benefits from there, but yeah, that's been an issue that has been popping up.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. All right, we reach out to your insurance agent or carrier. They may be able to make arrangements for the insurance premium. Many carriers are allowing for arrangements to be made, and you can also make midterm changes to the payroll or sales. Thank you, Susie. All right, Sarah, are you permitted to do any layoffs if you end up with the EIDL or even just the advance? There's nothing that precludes that specifically with the EIDL. So, I mean, you know, I guess the answer is yes, I guess. That I don't know of any language specifically as far as the EIDL advance goes. That would be the only piece that matters, is that grant through there. And you would have to look on the note that you'll get from SBA Disaster to see on that, Sarah, if you have applied for that. All right. Yes.
And I would just add in, you know, oh, sorry, Greg, but I would just add in, you know, as you can see throughout this program or throughout this presentation, you know, we're 2 weeks into this, and, you know, the rules are either not necessarily changing, but they're being clarified almost on a daily basis. So it's just, you know, what you may have understood 2 days ago is, you know, could very well be different today. So it's a tough environment to work in, but just, you know that it is very fluid, and, you know, it's good to either have an open dialogue with your your banker. I know they're overloaded, or even your CPA, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and, you know, you're up to speed on the ever-changing, the rules and the clarifications that are getting issued almost on a daily basis here.
Mm-hmm. So I just saw, what was they keep popping in the chat. Hold on. Jonathan, is it okay to share your presentation as a PDF with folks if Tom does that?
Yep, that's okay.
Okay. So Tom, we're gonna send you both presentations as a PDF file, and then you can send them around to folks. Okay.
We'll put them on our website, geneseny.com, chamber website. There's a button right on the home page there that has a COVID-19 business resource page link to it. You go there, and there's a lot of information besides that, but we will add these as soon as we get them. I think Stephen will put those up, and so you can access them both right there. That's probably the easiest way than us trying to email them out to everybody separately. So it'll be available at geneseny.com. Hit the COVID. There's a lot of other information on unemployment, essential business definitions, things like that. So there's and it's changing every day. So we're trying to update it every day also.
Perfect. That's an excellent resource. Thank you, Tom. So one from Sharon here: seasonal tourism businesses that may not be allowed to open this season will essentially be dead in the water through next spring. Will there possibly be any other help available besides the two discussed here? So on the PPP, that's tough if you're not allowed to open, Sharon, because at the same time, then you won't have any payroll costs to charge off against that. On the forgiveness, my suggestion would be to stay tuned to legislation that continues to come in. Keep in touch with your bank as far as options there, but we don't have anything specifically, you know, that would be that helpful for seasonal tourism businesses at this point. Unless Jonathan can think of something, but.
No, and she did just add that she's an LLC sole proprietor, so there might be something there for you where essentially, you know, again, it goes to our point where we're not exactly sure how you're going to prove to pay yourself, but there might be an opportunity with the PPP to at least supplement your income as a sole proprietor to kind of over that 8-week period to at least get some money. So I'd say more information to come on that.
Okay. From Brandon: how do you address employees who might only make $300 to $400 a week and now want to get the $600 from the federal government plus New York State unemployment? We have already sent in for the PPP, including them in our wage. They are essentially forced to stay on the payroll, making the much lower amount, or the business is at risk with the PPP forgiveness. I mean, that's a toughie for everybody right now. And I don't know well enough how the unemployment rules work for an employer. I've been told that you can check a box saying that they were offered their job back and then they're not allowed to stay on unemployment. Letting them collect while they can isn't a bad thing, and it's probably going to be a little bit of time before. And as Jonathan said, it looks like the ramp up is the 30 days from March 27th. So they might be able to get a couple weeks on unemployment and then you bring them back then. But that is a tough one that we don't have a good answer for at this point in time.
And I guess I would just also clarify that ramp up is, that 30 days is the latest, but if you get your PPP loan origination before that 30 days, that's when the clock starts again. So it's really the earlier of the two. And I guess just another point, if I know everyone wants to, maximize loan forgiveness, and if you end up getting more loan money that you can spend, I guess there's no prepayment penalty. So, at the end of it, if you have money left and you it's not for forgiven, you can always at least pay it back and pay down the loan. It's not necessarily the best scenario, but just know that, you know, if you didn't spend it all and you don't want the loan, you can always just essentially pay it back after that 8-week period.
Yep. And that's a good way to look at it as well. And if you're down a couple employees and it just doesn't make sense to bring them back and leave them on unemployment, you know, there will be a prorated formula, so you will still get some forgiveness from what you're paying, but you may or may not get all of it based on the head count. So it's not an all or nothing situation either. All right, I applied for the EIDL on March 20 before the format of the application was streamlined, and at the time one of the requirements was for you to be in a disaster area. Genesee County was not on the list when I applied, so I chose another county in New York that was on the list. Will this cause a problem for my application? All right, so all of the initial applications, everyone was told to go reapply. So you did the right thing by reapplying on March 30th. The new streamline application is what they wanted everybody to fill out, because that was also the EIDL advance piece in there. So so Becky, that you've done the right thing reapplying and hang in there. Brandon, on a follow-up, does one person going on unemployment in that scenario affect others who are wanting to stay on payroll? Thank you, and thank you for doing that. One person going on unemployment is going to change your employee numbers. So if you had 10 and you're down to 9, you know, that could be, again, prorated. So, and we don't have a clear formula on how they're prorating that yet. And Jonathan, I don't know if you've seen anything on that. If your employee count drops. Jonathan? No. So we haven't seen a formula on that specifically.
Sorry, Greg. I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, I would just say that, you know, we haven't seen it specifically, but, you know, it is, let's say you're at a 90%, you know, workforce when compared to, you know, the period that you have to compare it to, then, you know, your qualified use of the loan would essentially only be eligible for 90% forgiveness. You know, that's basically all we have. You know, there's still some rules to be clarified on how you count head count and some of the pro rating, but that's kind of our understanding as it is right now.
Mary, I know businesses have made these loans in the area. Approvals do not go through the Buffalo SBA. They go through the lenders themselves are the ones improving these loans. They've all been granted authority by the SBA to do these loans. Are they processing the EIDL applications in the order they were received? Yes. Becky, you keep an eye on your email and stuff today. You may be receiving something with today or within the next week with more information on the EIDL. All right, any other questions? Tom, you want to shut us down here, close it up? Can you unmute or no?
Yeah, I think you're still the host, so you're the only one who can shut us down. So, but I would like to thank everybody for coming, and we'll try to get that information on the website as soon as possible. And if there's any other information, feel free to give us a call. We'll try to, you know, we don't have the answers as a chamber, but we'll try to direct you to the people like Greg and Jonathan that can get you the answers. So.
Thank you, everyone. Hang in there. I know it's a difficult situation, and really, you know, patience and persistence. You know, we'll one day at a time here. And Jonathan, in closing, you too, thank you very much for joining us. If you want to say a couple words.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank everyone for their time, and yeah, kind of reiterate you said, this is, you know, something we've never seen before. So patience and persistence. just keep an open dialogue with your advisors and your banker, and just, you know, I know we're all doing our best. So.
All right.
We may try.
Thanks.
We may try to do something like this in the future too, just, you know, because everything's changing every week. So we'll update if there's something updatable or worth having another one of these. We will, because it's you know, we were all finding out it's changing every week that comes on. So we'll try to keep you up to date. And Greg, thank you very much. You've always been a good friend of the chamber. Jonathan Fried-Maxick always has been great to the chamber also. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody else for coming on this morning. So,
Thanks for having us. Have a good day.
okay, bye now.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter.